Some details on World Update 4 for Microsoft Flight Simulator, new information on the status of terrain, a look at Contrails along with a mention of Sim Update 4 and World Update 5 are just some of the things we're taking a look at today. So let's get to it. The latest roadmap for Microsoft Flight Simulator is showing World Update 4 as a release in early April. Now in a Q&A from yesterday, Asobo and Microsoft discussed a few details on what the update will contain. The countries being focused on this time will be France, Belgium, Netherlands and Luxemburg. As previous with World Updates, there will be new digital elevation maps and new aerial maps. The digital elevation maps here in particular are very interesting. As with previous, most of them are going to be 5-meter DEMs, but with some areas in France, the detail here is going to be as high as 1-meter DEM, which, is pretty impressive. For airports, apparently there's going to be 3, at least 3 at the moment, there may be more coming later. These will be Altiport Merchev, apologise if I've got that pronounced wrong there, that's LFHM. There'll be another airport in Nice, LFMN, and there will also be an airport for Rotterdam, The Hague, which is EHRD. Asobo also teased there might just possibly be an announcement about a plane in World Update 4, so whether that's a fix to an existing plane or perhaps more importantly and more specifically a new plane, we're going to have to wait and see, but Asobo said it's not quite ready yet, so they're not really ready to talk about it. World Update 4 will also contain a new bush trip and a landing challenge as with previous World Updates. Additionally, there will be some new photogrammetry for certain cities. These cities will be Paris and Amsterdam. There will also be over 100 new points of interest. What's really interesting is that as the World Updates continue onwards, there's an increasing number of points of interest every time, and on screen right now you can see a sneak peek of some of those points of interest we can expect to see. Additionally, there will be new types of procedural buildings. One of these, amongst many, will be windmills, which are likely to be found in Holland. Now, Japanese and Dutch language support will also be arriving with World Update 4, and what's more, additional language support will be a factor of all future World Updates. So basically, every World Update will come with at least one additional new language. Now, on another note, with World Updates here, we've got a little bit of new information about World Update 5, and this is not a particularly big piece of information. We don't yet know which countries it will cover, but World Update 5 and Sim Update 4 are going to be combined into one single update. And I think this in part is due to the pacing of the current updates. I think Asobo are finding it a bit of a struggle to keep up with a monthly release schedule, so it looks like there's some changes to be going on there. Now, on the subject of changes, there was some unexpected, or it appeared to be, to us at least from outside Asobo and Microsoft, some last-minute changes to the contents of Sim Update 3. It's long been expected that Sim Update 3 would contain some huge improvements and overall changes to the Garmin systems, the G1000 and G3000. Now, you can see the reason for this belief comes from the feedback snapshot, which said that the Garmin updates will be in Sim Update 3. That's now changed on the latest feedback snapshot, which shows that these changes will be coming in the summer or the fall of 2021. And there's a pretty significant reason for this. I think initially just maybe Asobo were going to do this work themselves, but now they're handing it off to a third party who are none other than Working Title, an extremely talented group of people who have a lot of experience in making mods for Microsoft Flight Simulator, specifically with improvements to the CRJ4. Now, Working Title were briefly on the Q&A live stream, and they discussed what to expect and how this is all going to work. They're going to be overhauling a lot of the systems in various planes. The work will be iterative, and it will likely take a very long time, but I think it's going to be well worth the effort. So certainly not something we're going to see just yet for a while, but one thing it will be is a core part of the game, so it will come with one of the Sim updates in the future. It won't be an add-on or a marketplace edition, it's going to be a core part of the Sim. So, like many of you, I've been following the development of Microsoft Flight Simulator for a very long time now, and one thing I'm particularly enjoying with both Asobo and Microsoft is their dedication to the community. If there's people out there who are doing really good work, Working Title are a good example, as are Fly-by-Wire, then Asobo are very willing to reach out to them and basically make them a part of the team in that one way or another. So this essentially means that the Microsoft Flight Simulator platform can grow ever faster. Now, as we're talking about future content, there was a variety actually of subjects that were discussed by the developers. I've got a few highlights of some of the points that really stood out to me, and I want to discuss those now. Now, one of these was mountains. We've heard before they're too rounded. This is brought up quite regularly on the Q&As. This time, Asobo wanted to go into a bit more detail with it, so they took some video footage together with some development data and showed that to the viewers. What we can see here is some clips. On the left side is the regular footage as we can see it in the games, the regular terrain that is. On the right hand side is the same terrain but with the wireframe enabled. So this allows us to see the amount of geometry and detail that actually goes into any one scene. And yeah, that's clearly a huge amount of detail. So the point being made here is actually twofold. Firstly is an admission that yes, Asobo agree that mountains are not quite right, they're too rounded and not detailed as perhaps as they should be. But they're also clarifying that this isn't actually down to the engine being used. The engine is more than capable of making great looking mountains, but these aren't available in all locations, precisely for one very specific reason, which is the data being used. So as we saw very recently with the UK and Ireland update, the England, Scotland, all the rest of it was improved with 5-metre DEMs. And if you go up to the Scottish Highlands, you can see just how effective this actually is. And this also works around the Lake District and the Wales National Parks as well. They will look significantly improved. So basically, as Asobo continues to get access to improved data and feed this into the sim, it then in turn will improve the overall terrain. The takeaway message here then is that over the coming months, over the coming years, the whole world will slowly get improved. Talking of improvements is the icing effect. Now, planes ice up, we all know that, but the icing effect isn't entirely accurate when it comes to Microsoft Flight Simulator. In some respects, it does look really good. I think it's visually quite impressive, but really in terms of accuracy, both in terms of performance and visuals, it's not quite there. And this is something that Asobo are aware of. Currently, icing is a single layer graphically and it's represented with just one shader, and this means that the results have to be somewhat exaggerated to give the desired effect. But this is something also that Asobo are going to fix. Additionally, they also want to give some extra options with icing, basically allowing it to be fully disabled if a player wants it removed, maybe you want it removed in VR, for example, or to have it as a visual only thing, or there will also be some other options as well. So the idea here is to give simmers as many options as possible. Now with Sim Update 3, we saw the first iteration of Contrails. You can see some of these on the screen right now, and these do actually look really, really good. But Contrails are far from finished. Right now, they're not affected by wind, for example, and this is something that's going to be added in the future. Asobo specifically called Contrails a work in progress, so this means we have a lot more to look forward to regarding them. Moving on to controls, it was asked if it will be possible to have separate profiles for input controls on a per plane basis. There's also a desire within the community to have the ability to both import and export these profiles. So these are definitely things that Asobo are working on, but they're not something that have a time frame at the moment. There's a whole bunch of IFR stuff. If you're interested in that, I do highly recommend watching the official live stream, the official Q&A. It did go into quite some detail and more than I really have time to cover on in this particular video. But one thing that did stand out to me is why are there no offset approaches for IFR? So again, this is an improvement that Asobo are working on, and the current plan is to get these in for Sim Update 4. Although this will be a part of ongoing fixes, so IFR is still something that's going to be improved over future updates. The weather, in particular the weather radar. Now currently the weather radar seems to act like a cloud radar rather than a rain radar, and this is due to the way the game currently calculates the dynamic weather in front of the plane, or at least that's what I took from the Q&A. It's something that is set to be improved soon, although Asobo didn't give a specific time window. It sounds though like it could be a part of a Sim Update 4 as a potential candidate for getting this fix in. And finally, on the subject of fixes, there were a bunch of issues, some of you may have seen them with London in the previous World Update. London has some graphical issues here, and they are affecting both performance as well as the visuals in certain areas. This is something that is going to be fixed, so we haven't given a time frame for this, but they do want things to be correct. So there we have it, a whole bunch of new information. If you want to check out the Q&A for yourself, you can find a link below. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys and girls next time.